Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Roll call, Fred Dickey. Absent. Mayra Hernandez. Mayra Hernandez. Cesar Garay. Cesar, can you hear me? Yeah, just
Present.
here. Yeah, myself, I'm here. Arturo Dominguez, are you
Present.
there, Arturo? Alma Acevedo,
Present.
got you, Alma. Rafael Dueñas.
Present,
You,
present.
Rafael. Julian Rodnowski
Present.
and Joe Maldonado.
Here in spirit.
Attaboy, Joe. Very
There's
good.
Mr. Dickey.
Oh, there he is.
Very good.
Good morning. Afternoon.
Good morning. Fred Dickey. Is that you, Fred?
It sure is. They call me other things.
Okay. Yeah, you put people in a hole, right?
Well, they're dying to get to see me. I can say that.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Mayra, I don't know. She's not in yet, right? So Mayra's the only one that's missing as of now.
Yes, sir.
Very good. So we have a quorum. First item on the agenda is the discussion and possible action related to the Economic Development Advisory Committee mission statement. I don't know if have you all seen the mission statement? And this was done probably like 10 years ago.
Can I
I'm sorry?
just, Mr. Chairman, can I just say something real quick before we start the conversation? This was originally Maida's item, so maybe in respect to her, we can wait until she comes on or something?
Okay. Okay.
And that's just a suggestion. I mean, if y'all want to go ahead, that's fine, but it is her item.
Okay. Rafael, can you hear me?
Me? Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I know you posted something in there. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it's going in and out a little bit, but
let's go on to the second item. Discussion and presentation by Alma Acevedo, EDAC committee member on upcoming Infrastructure Week that is set to take place September 14th through the 18th of this year. Alma, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. Yes, and I did mention that there's something going on with my mute button, but okay, yeah, I had an echo as well. Let me see if I can share. I'm gonna try share content. I've never shared through WebEx, so wish me luck. Can you guys see my screen? Nope.
Not yet.
It should work the same way down on your share content button.
I hit it and I selected the PowerPoint. You guys don't see it?
Nope.
Okay, I don't know if I need a special permission for that. Try one more time.
Arnold, does she need permission, Arnold?
Oh, there it is. It's coming on.
Okay, great, great. So there's a delay. Thank you. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Alma Acevedo. I'm here to talk to you about Infrastructure Week. United for Infrastructure is a Washington, D.C. based 501c4 that was established in 2011. And they are led by a steering committee made up of these organizations. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if everybody wants to mute or just double check that they're muted.
We can hear you good, or I can.
Is everybody seeing her application? Because I'm not seeing it. How about you all?
Nope.
No, you're not seeing it?
There's a green screen up.
Oh, it says I'm sharing my Outlook. Well, that's terrible because my Outlook is out of
Great.
control. It says I'm sharing my Outlook.
Yeah, it looks like you got some open text there, so you got a lot of work to do there.
Oh, you mean the 3,300 plus unread emails in my inbox? Let me close my everything else. Sorry about that, guys. You think as a millennial, I would have all this tech stuff down? Not my thing.
You're a millennial?
I am. Don't let the grays fool you. Let me see. Okay. Let me close out that PowerPoint.
Fred's a millennial too. I see him there.
And that PowerPoint.
Millennial doesn't mean you're 100 years old, John. It means you're born a certain time.
All right, I'm gonna try this again, guys.
I'm
You guys were having fun looking at my unread emails and not even telling me. Not the,
Oops.
We didn't see him at all, Alma, just a gray screen, so.
yeah,
you're
that's
good.
what it looked like it was showing. So do you see this?
No.
Ah, okay. I'm gonna try one more time. Maybe share my meeting window. That doesn't make sense, but I'll try it. Okay, now you can see that. You see each other? Do you see this now? Is this working? No, that's just my meeting window.
No.
All right.
You want to send it to me and I'll try?
Yeah, I had sent it to Arnold. Okay, let me hear share. You see how I'm doing it
Arnold just got called away to the city manager's office. So
now? Do
there
you guys
go.
see it?
We
Yes.
see.
Okay.
There you go. We got
Do
it.
you guys still see it?
I do.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So again, I'll start from the beginning. United for Infrastructure is a Washington DC based 501c4 that was established in 2011. It consists of 3 staff members and is led by a steering committee made up of the organizations you see. I'll name a few that I can. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, AFL-CIO, which is a major union group throughout the country, the American Society of Civil Engineers, and so on and so forth. They have over 530 affiliates consisting of labor unions, industry associations, policy groups, manufacturers, cities, municipalities, counties, and even anything from teachers and realtors to oil and gas industry groups. So I'm going to go into some of these are copied and pasted press release points, little snippets I thought were of importance. Basically, it was known as Infrastructure Week. Now it's, I'll go back to the screen. The tagline at the top, a week to champion America's infrastructure. So I had it on the agenda as Infrastructure Week because I was not up to date. But it's a week of education and advocacy. This year it's going to be September 14th through 21st. They delayed it because of the COVID pandemic, but traditionally it's been in May. And the idea is to raise awareness for our country's infrastructure needs. Again, this is copy and pasted from the press release, advocating for better infrastructure policy and greater investment from all levels of government. And the one I put in bold, the reason why I'm bringing it up is it mentions national and local projects with implications for the national economy don't receive the funding they need. That's their wording per the press release, but I think that a few trips to DC and just the involvement I've been able to have as private sector with the city and in committees like this, I think we could all agree that we could always use a little bit more federal funding for our infrastructure as an international trade port. It unites diverse stakeholders to send one message to leaders in Washington and beyond. And as I transition to the next slide, I want to read, I didn't put this on the PowerPoint, but this year's theme, which is Rebuild Better, elevates the policies to ensure every American has the infrastructure they need, highlights the roles of essential infrastructure workers amidst the pandemic, and opens a conversation about decisions of the past that perpetuated inequities in communities of color, what to do about it, and how to build resilient infrastructure that helps communities thrive in a changing climate. And basically,
Alma,
yeah.
Alma, I have a question. So by infrastructure, what do you mean? You mean streets, roads? Do you mean utilities?
Yeah, so yeah, no, I'm getting to that. It's roads, bridges, rails, ports, airports, water and sewer systems, the energy grid, and schools, public buildings, parks, infrastructure. And so this year, it's been a very sensitive year to racial inequality. And last year I was able to attend the Infrastructure Week kickoff in person in DC. And this is just a picture I took from my seat. But this particular panel was called Building Opportunities and Breaking Down Borders. And this panel, you can see it's got the former Secretary of Transportation and the Chief Policy Officer of Lyft to our right. And then to the left is the Honorable Frank Scott Jr., the Mayor of Little Rock, and then the President of American Federation of Teachers, which is Randy Weingarten. And it was very neat to hear this panel because they talked about some of the things that I think Laredo is not immune to, where, you know, a major highway will divide a community. I think, and I'm not sure if this is a fact, but my understanding of Laredo history is when the 35 divided El Azteca to the rest of downtown. You see that in communities throughout the country. And then just disproportionate building of the supporting infrastructure. Again, those parks, the road conditions and things like that. And on the bottom right of the screen is one of their free resources you could use to share if you want to participate in the week of champion America's infrastructure. But that's a fact that they had come up with, which at least 2 million Americans live without access to clean water. And there's another one of their resources that you could share on your social media accounts or throughout your networks. And they're saying that every $1 billion in federal investment supports in infrastructure supports 13,000 American jobs. And this is a tweet from last year's Infrastructure Week, and I thought it was really great because, you know, it says, "Here's to the mud on the work site, the boots on the ground, the men and women who wear those boots, the skills and talents at work, and to progress today for a better tomorrow." And you know, me being more of a vocational type, hands-on person, I always gear towards the dirty jobs. If you're familiar with the Steve Rowe show, but it's not just dirty jobs. There's engineers, civil engineers, there's technology engineers, and there's the planning and the architects behind it. But it's a job creator. And then among the other things is you think about the supply chain and the supporting industries. They're stating that for every dollar invested in infrastructure generates $3.70 in economic growth. I think we're none of us are really immune to what that looks like if you put something up in all the supporting industries that surround it. But also it's the opportunity for innovation. And this is one I'm not going to touch too much on, but you know, the city, Theclo knows, and he's put it on at least LinkedIn, but that the city's working on their broadband access, and the numbers and the percentages I don't have off the top of my head, but here's what they're posting for a national level. 18 million households, 15% of them that do not have broadband subscriptions. And in supporting infrastructure in all the different categories, and some of them can lead to the innovation. And,
Do you mind if I just say something real quick there about Laredo?
yeah.
Okay, so as Alma mentioned, you know, Laredo is going through this, you know, digital inclusion effort to put Wi-Fi spots around the city, but also partnering with Laredo ISD and United ISD, so we can all kind of be on the same frequency for public Wi-Fi, and they will put up Wi-Fi nodes in all their public school areas and parking lots. And the city will do the same at all city facilities and parks and other areas, right, as best we can. That's not going to blanket the city, unfortunately, but we hope to get more money in the next round of federal help. And so far, those monies have been allowed to be used to support distance learning type of efforts, and this is what this would be done under, even though it's going to be more helpful than just distance learning. So you know, we hope to do even more, but it's extremely important, and it's one of those kind of I think you'll agree that it's one of those basic needs for economic development in Laredo. You got to have Wi-Fi. I mean, you got to have connectivity throughout the city. We're at 60% connectivity, which is one of the lowest in the country. It's not the lowest, but we're in the bottom percentile. Believe it or not, Brownsville is the least connected city in the country. And I forget what their percentage was, like 70-something% of people that don't have broadband or cable or you know, DSL service. And FAR, which is next to McAllen, is number 2. And then I think we were like 40th or something like that, but it's still not a good thing, but we'll get better at it.
Yeah, and campaigns like this are just awareness. You know, I'm not affiliated with any of this. I'm as a member of the Laredo Chamber, maybe my affiliation reaches at the national level through the U.S. Chamber. On a local level, there are some organizations like the Laredo Association of Realtors. On a national level, the realtors are involved with this. So I think it's just the idea is to bring awareness to this. Theclo just said on the last webinar on the port that we need to control the narrative. It's not anything new that we've heard this before. We've talked about this before. And this is just one of those ways that it's a tool I wanted to share with you guys, whether it's anything that is in your specific industry. It counts for all of it. It's not just transportation, it's not just manufacturing and international trade, but it's exactly what Theclo was talking about with the broadband connectivity, the waterworks. I know in the past we've talked about downtown having, needing new sewage systems and pipes as if we were to add housing. And all these conversations that we have in our meetings, there's great resources. Last year was the theme was building for tomorrow. This is rebuild better. A lot of what they're saying is in the national disasters, the wildfires and whatnot, when we go to rebuild these things, we have to do it in a better way. But I thought, we focused and we talk a lot about job creation and things like that. I thought it was those of you that are on Twitter or social media that maybe keep an eye out. There is a virtual kickoff event on September 14th. There it is from noon to 1:30. I believe that might be Eastern time. I would have to go back and check, but the website links below. And also, this is an opportunity for anybody to also, if they want to host an event, you're more than welcome to go to the website and post what you're hosting. So it's an open for all type of thing. And I think it's something that, maybe not this year, but maybe eventually the city can develop an actual campaign. And I've had the opportunity to discuss this with Jeff Miller from the airport. And it sounds like they're all in putting at least some type of using the hashtag and posting some of the pictures of some of the improvements that they've been able to do at the airport. So that concludes my presentation, and I will stop sharing.
Alma, question for you. So back in the 30s, you had the New Deal, right? And I don't know if how does that compare to the New Deal? What type of funding? And I know, of course, is it a bipartisan? Is it, I think Biden has alluded to some of this, and I don't know on the Republican side, we don't know who's going to win the election, but how is this going to be funded? So I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, so that's the $1 million question, or the probably hundreds of $1 billion question. There is no specific plan to fund infrastructure. Well, there are plans, but it seems to be that at that point it stops becoming bipartisan. I believe it's over 70% of voters do agree on improving infrastructure and better and more increased funding of infrastructure. But United for Infrastructure is bipartisan. It's not a plan on how to get it done or how to fund it. It's more bringing awareness, and I guess the push to have this be a hot topic all year round, but focus during this week and have it trend. I know from my membership in the Motor Carriers Association, I do get a chance to read the newsletters here and there. You guys saw my inbox, but or you didn't, but it's I know there are different methods or proposed means to fund infrastructure needs, and not all of them are going to be popular. And so at that point, I think that's where it becomes a political issue. But yeah, so it's an awareness campaign. It's not necessarily how we're going to fund this. And in speaking of Biden, there is a panel video or a podcast of different presidential candidates talking about infrastructure. I personally haven't looked at it, but it's on the website.
Just a little bit of information that I've learned is first you got to do a study on infrastructure, like a bridge or a highway or something. Then you have to do the environmental studies, and all of this takes a little bit of time. Then you have your shovel ready projects, which is ready to get funded, because that's the next step is funding. So if these two parts are not done before, to get funds from the federal government or the state is a little bit hard. And once you get your funds, then you do the procurement and then it takes off. But that's That's really where you have to look at. Is there a study, and is it already environmental ready to do an infrastructure? And so those are the key factors in building a road or a bridge. My input.
Anybody else? Very good, Arturo. One thing that I missed was going over the minutes. If not, we'll go. So you all have the minutes in front of you all from August the 6th, 2020.
Motion to approve.
The only question I have on the minutes is that for the for number 3, there was 8-4 and 1 abstained, and I don't know who abstained on that one. That was on the discussion and possible action in the progress of Laredo's new Texas Chapter 380 guidelines, and seek further guidance. So Garcia, do you know who abstained? Because everybody else is 9-0, and that one there's an abstain.
I don't. I think Alma abstained.
Yeah, I'm having a delay on my mute and unmute, so I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I emailed our
Okay, just wanted to, just wasn't a typo. Okay, very good. Do I hear a motion for the approval of the minutes? Or raised, Mr. Dickey, the motion?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Not, motion passes. Is Maida, is she in? She's not in?
Yes,
Oh, there you go.
I was
Maida.
late.
Good. Well, we'll go back to item number 1. Mr. Garcia told me that you had brought up item number 1, Maida, and that's on discussion and possible action related to the Economic Development Advisory Committee mission statement. So, you know, we wanted for you to be here before we discuss this topic. So,
Can I just say something real quick? A couple of things actually before Maida gets into this. Number one, I'm enjoying Rafael's background, the very dark kind of cave that he's in. I don't know where he's at, but it might be one of his bars. I'm not sure, but that's kind of cool. But number 2, oh, nice, man. Yeah, I'm liking it. Number 2 is, Mr. Chairman, Maida and I had this a quick discussion about this item a couple of months ago, and I was tabled for, for lack of time and during meetings and so forth. But I think what she was getting at was saying that having a mission statement that was more reflective of what we were doing now, or what the committee should be doing now. And instead of when the committee was created, it was created specifically to oversee, or not to oversee, to advise to the council what sort of economic incentives businesses should receive when they come to Laredo. And obviously, this committee does a lot more than that. And that was, as Maida mentioned to me, that was developed way before an economic developer was around, a director. So I think that's where the conversation she was going with was when we started talking about them.
The
that's
mission.
perfect. So it was, did we need to revisit on the mission and goals of the committee, considering that at the time that it was implemented, there was no economic development department. Now there is. So has our role shifted, or is there anything that we need to add to enhance now that we have a department in the city?
yeah,
I can read the old when it says to create and a comprehensive initiative package for prospective new business, and also discuss economic development. That's what the mission statement says right now.
And I think the first part that really doesn't pertain to us, which is create a comprehensive, a package for prospective new businesses. I know we're working on the 380, but I'd like some input from the committee.
I could understand that how, you know, the first part, to create a comprehensive incentive package would be a ball that would be better suited in employees of the city's court. I think that to support that, the department needs more support. I'm not sure where the department stands on its growth, but I believe that it could use some beefing up as we're able to. I know it's still very new, but I could imagine on the needs of the city that Thekla could use a few more people on his team. And I'm probably not alone in that thought. So, but I could understand how we could probably separate that from what our committee is here to do.
Julian Rotnowski. Oh, I was just going to chime in on the whole thing. I think, however, if we do evolve that mission statement, be mindful of EDC and what their mission statement is, and make sure that we do not overlap on that, because then we're just creating some redundancies. I do think there does need to be some mention of small business in what we focus on as a mission, because right now I can say with EDAC there's no focus on that. Sorry, it's not my phone. So that's just kind of my perspective. I do think it needs to evolve, and I just ask that everyone kind of consider including the concept of small business, and if anything specifically, how quality of life is essentially become part of economic development. You know, people are choosing places not just based off what's cheapest, but where people can have the best quality of life. So I think that should be mentioned in the mission statement. Thanks.
I also think what we should mention is, I know that our committee in the past, like we implemented the NEC. I know we're looking at the Chapter 380. So not exactly packages for prospective new businesses, but to look at incentive tools that could be used by the community and provide guidelines as to how they can use those tools. Like the NEC, it provided abatements, it provided fee waivers. The 380 provides, you know, certain abatements on, and of course that needs to be finalized. But there's 312s. There could be other tax incentives, other incentives to spark economic development. Your thoughts?
I mean, you know, there's TERS also.
Well, I mean, I like all this. I mean, I'd be glad to take a stab at it, and maybe bring something back to you guys that you can edit, and kind of finagle to where y'all are comfortable with. But I like the direction that y'all are taking this in. I agree with Alma on one point, and with Julian as well, on what he said. But allowing the Economic Development Department, which I think you see about all of it right here behind me, is allow me to, like the city council does, allow me to negotiate with folks on details. And some of those are confidential, and I don't really feel comfortable, talking about them in public forums sometimes until the time is right. But presenting those programs or opportunities in a mission statement, whether it be quality of life or exact programs, I think it's a really smart thing to do. So I can try to put those together in a statement that y'all can work on, and then maybe we can come out with something in the next month or two.
I think that sounds great. And yeah, economic development has so many parts to it, including small business, including quality of life. And I think that on more than one occasion, we've made attempts to talk about small business, but just like we don't want to conflict with Laredo EDC, we don't want to conflict with SBDC or Laredo College external, their EDC. And so I think that it could be almost like a bridge of some sort, or put these things together, because part of economic development is sustaining and helping grow our existing businesses. And so I think that, yeah, anything you could put together. And I think on my end, I'm going to be a little bit more vocal about what it would take, how do we get the resources your department needs to be able to flourish and succeed.
Who's your council person?
I am in Dr. Marta Martinez's district, but I'm appointed by Nelly Gutman.
Okay, let him know. Let him know. No, listen, it's always good for y'all to mention that to your council members, and I appreciate that very much. We are in a predicament with personnel, obviously, because of our budget situation. So, I don't expect anything, but certainly in the near future, maybe next year's budget or something like that, we can add. I've already developed a little plan. If we could put together a little team of, say, like 3 to 5 people, I know what those roles would be, and I can bring those to y'all at the right time. But so yeah, I don't mind y'all mentioning it to them, but I know the reality of our budgets right now.
Teclo, now that you're touching that subject, we talked about somebody patrolling what's going on around the area, the region, like infrastructure, ports to planes that they want to build, or they're doing the feasibility on getting another parallel to 35 road, but they want to start at 35 and then go up 83 and then it goes up. And we would like to see something that starts at Mines Road and then goes up all the way to Eagle Pass. That's parallel, and that's a different new road. And when there's no traffic in the oil business, when there's traffic in the oil business, it's just going to get saturated again. And so those are the things that we get there late. The I-69, I think we walked in pretty late as Laredo, trying to bully everybody. And I think it's somebody that's not monitoring those activities that are going on in the area. And I think that should be part of your department. And you really need more personnel to do that eventually.
I agree.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Arturo. We sure do. Right now we're kind of doing it as a ad hoc group. The mayor attends when he can. I'm assigned to I-69, the Alliance for I-69. So I make sure to attend those, but the Ports of Plains is another one. There you have the Border Trade Advisory Committee, and you got several others that are very important that we need to attend. So yeah, thank you for saying that. We also have, by the way, on that topic, just for the groups to know, for everyone in the group to know, for us and for yourself and your own business that you have, is we're about 100+ days out from the state legislature starting. And so you keep in mind of what is it that y'all want from the legislature in your own worlds, because first days to file bills is in November, I think November 18th or something like that. So if you start too late, one of the things I did before I came here was, I was the government affairs person in the Valley for McAllen and Mission for about 13 years. And so I worked every legislative session during that time. I think it was 6, or maybe I got an off year and I had 7. But either way, right now you should already have your stuff ready to talk to your state legislator about before the session, because once the session starts, they get pulled in 100 different directions, and they don't have time to talk to you as much as they do now. So now's a good time to approach them about those bills or about those issues that you have on the state level.
And another area too, where I feel your department would be suited, and you may have experience with this already, is recently Mile One hosted a webinar. The Women Entrepreneurs Rock Series was doing contracting with the government, and the presenter and I were having a conversation afterwards, and he was saying when he was putting together his presentation, he was really surprised about how compared to San Antonio, where the almost entire city of San Antonio, I believe, is considered a hub zone, Laredo is not. And when you look at our poverty numbers and some of the other things that those statistics, it's kind of amazing. And I think I was having a conversation with somebody else about it, and they were saying, I think that's one of those, political lobbying type or whatever the phrase is, but it's something that you need an advocate on behalf of the city to help push something like that. And you could point all these things out, and they are full-time jobs between all the alliances and projects and everything else, but it goes back to that control that narrative, speak up and be there from the get. So they're not just saying, oh, this port is part of this because by location, and then we don't have a say. And I also want to go back to one of the conversations you and I had where the bridge itself doesn't have its own marketing team or public information officer. It all goes back to Rafa Benavides. And I think of when they applied for some of the grants, and it was kind of like, how do we get those support letters from the private sector? And so there's a lot of work to be done in a lot of different areas that all come back to the same objective. So
It's amazing to me. Thank you, Alma. I know and you hit a really good point. And I don't want to bore the whole team about this, but I just want to mention to you that, and thank most of you for, going through the hiring process and bringing me on. So I appreciate that. And so that was a big step for Laredo, right? And certainly the Laredo EDC and the foundation before them did good work, right? And we do have the Laredo College Economic Development Group who's just kind of getting started. And we have Miguel Conchas and Miriam at the chamber. And there's kind of diverse things that we all do. However, just to give you an idea, like in DFW, there's probably about, 15, maybe 20 suburbs of a good size, right? Frisco and Plano and Arlington and all these places, right? And then there's Dallas and then there's Fort Worth, right? Well, all those cities, they have economic development staffs like me, right? Or like in San Antonio, they have 11 people on their economic development staff. But then they have the San Antonio Development Foundation, which also has about 15 people, right? And then you have the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce that has 5 economic development people on their staff, right? And then you have Brooks Air Force Base, North San Antonio Chamber, right? And so you put those together and they've got about 30, 35 people working together full time on economic development, right? Not including the boards and volunteers like y'all, right? So in Dallas and Fort Worth, in addition to all the city staffs and all the chambers and EDCs throughout the whole area, they have this thing called the Dallas-Fort Worth Partnership, right? They have 58 people concentrated on economic development, right? Houston, they've got the Houston Partnership. They've got 78 people in the Houston Economic Development Partnership working just on economic development, in addition to all the different staffs and the Port of Houston and all these places. So that's kind of how far we are behind. And I don't want to be a bureaucrat here just asking for more people, right? That's not my job. But I just want to let y'all know, like that's our competition. When we talk about Laredo being the biggest port in North America, land port, and our competition, it's the Port of Houston. The Port of Houston has a tremendous amount of people doing business development, in addition to the partnership, in addition to the city, in addition to everybody else. And we're not at that level. We're basically able to get what we can from Mexico without doing any work. Just imagine if we had a crew of like 12 people working this all the time, how much more business we could have and how much more a developed city we could have. But we'll get there. But I just wanted to, let you know that's the competition. Even El Paso has 11 people on their economic development staff, right? Not including their EDC, which is another 10 people. So anyway, that's my little soapbox.
So Teclo, what is it that how do they divide their departments? I mean, is somebody?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Like, let's look at San Antonio and El Paso. They both have 11 people, right? So in San Antonio, they have 2 people that handle, for instance, contracts. All the TERS contracts, all the 380s. They handle the enforcement, the management, the reviews. They do the projections, and they do all that for those 380s, right? For the TERSs, 380s, 312s, all those kind of different things, right? And they handle the first initial meetings with developers and that kind of stuff. You have business development people. You have industrial business development. You have retail business development, right? You have entertainment business development, tourism business development. You have different people that do that. Then you have like the EDC director. You might have a deputy director in charge of different things. Who presents to council, how they get them ready, who handles these kind of meetings. There's all sorts of jobs of that nature that are divided in those jobs. Some like to Julian's point, some business, some EDCs have a small business person, and all they do is focus on small business, right? There's others that focus on just recruitment. Others focus on just expansion, right? And so, and then the really big ones have public policy directors and people that do government relations for them to see what kind of legislation they can run through Austin or DC in order to make it more advantageous for them to recruit and land businesses. So there's all kind of different jobs, John, I'm glad you asked, that are involved when you get these sort of bigger, more specialized staffs.
So the key
So,
here
but
is
then
getting
apart from
specialized
that-
staff to do. I have a question, Teclo. How does the community development department function with these departments at these particular cities? Because right
Community
now there's enforcement and so on. Excuse me.
Yeah, the community development, they do have a role. Like in San Antonio, once, just to give an example, once a TERS is established, a tax increment refinance zone is established, and economic development usually works to establish it. It's usually handed over to community development, and then they do the management of that contract and the enforcement of all the regulations and that kind of stuff. That doesn't work for all cities. Just like any EDC around Texas, every EDC seems to be different. But in San Antonio, that's what they do. They have contract managers that handle it. And keep in mind, San Antonio has about 25 TERSs around the city. And I don't know if any of you have been to San Antonio lately, but Frost Bank built a new tower on the west side of downtown. It's a gleaming glass building, about 23 stories. That was done with the TERS. The Frost Bank doesn't even own that tower. This English investor owns it, and then he got a TERS and a 380 in order to build that building, and then Frost moved in there, and then City of San Antonio moved into the old Frost Tower, and now that's City Hall.
Ya mero me voy para San Antonio.
I have a question.
Brett,
Yes, sir.
What would you recommend that we should do? And maybe we should, bring it up. I mean, it's like we're left way behind. What would you recommend at least, for us to do to at least get started,
Well, I mean, we have to be more competitive, right? We have to have a better strategic plan. I mean, we have to have more. I mean, honestly, in order just to be more competitive and to be more, we can develop a better plan, right? And we have a pretty decent one right now, but we could always be better. But Fred, to answer your question, we need more funds. I mean, it's hard to say that right now where we are as a city and during the pandemic, but we do need more funds. We need to have a couple of more folks on staff that would concentrate on these things and keep an eye, like Arturo just said, about all these different committees and alliances that we need to belong to, and not only just belong to, but be part of, and that takes time and energy. But yeah, we definitely need a bigger, more cohesive group to do this. And a city of our size, I mean, you look at Frisco. Frisco is, one of the newest, darling suburb of Dallas, right? They're not any bigger than us. They don't do as much trade as us, but they've got like 11 people on their EDC staff, right? And we have one. So, I mean, yeah, there's people that help. CVB helps and airport helps and that kind of thing, but it's not the same. I mean, and that's me. And I don't want to be, sounding like I'm crying about it, but
No.
that's the reality.
And the thing is, not that anybody's crying, is what do we need?
Yeah, that's what we need. We
we
need
have a-
that, you know?
We have a comprehensive plan, and so that was established, what, 2017? When you have a
It's a very good comprehensive plan. It didn't delve as far into economic development as maybe we had hoped, but yeah.
So, but it's
Well,
what,
that-
about 3 years old? Has the city looked at the plan to see what needs to be revisited? What has been executed by that plan? What needs to be revamped? What needs to be removed? Do we need to change? We have a pandemic. We didn't have pandemic 3 years ago. Has anybody done that? Because if I have I think as a business plan, you have your 5-year plan, and so you should really be visiting it every year or every 2 years to see where you're at. Actually, it should be annually to assess where you're headed. That's how you develop mission goals and move forward and realign. Maybe what made sense in 2017 is not making sense anymore in 2020.
So the plan actually, if I can,
Oh,
If I can
real
just-
quick, Julian, real quick,
Yeah.
sorry. One thing that like regarding the plan, like the city council about 4 months ago said, hey, we want you to develop this short to long-term plan on what kind of strategy you're going to use to develop, industry in Laredo, whatever that industry was. And so we did that, and they said, okay, this is what you're going to do from here on out, right? Now, it kind of meshes with the plan, but then, we have other, initiatives directly from the council to do. Anyway, sorry, Julian.
So I was going to actually respond to what she was saying. The plan states that we are supposed to have someone actually reassess and see what we've checked off every year so that we can reevaluate and determine we've been doing enough here, but not enough here, or we haven't been doing enough anywhere. And we need to pick up on those areas. And the secondary purpose of that is also to say, okay, not only have we found out this year what we've been doing right, but now there's a new issue and we need to focus on that and it needs to be updated. But from my understanding, we haven't been doing any of those things. Like people
Not even
mention
to
the comp plan, but there hasn't been an actual assessment. San Antonio themselves actually has an outside organization that audits the city and basically gives a score. And it's very much supported not only by the local city, but it's also supported by the private sector, which donates money in order to hire the personnel that make sure that that plan is actually being accounted for. We haven't done any of those things.
So we spend all this money on a comprehensive plan that is just on a bookshelf in someone's office.
Yeah, and keep in mind that economic development part of that plan was very small, all right? So the rest of it, what Julian is talking about, is really comprehensive. I mean, it's really big.
It's actually not on my bookshelf. It's currently on my desk. But under weaknesses, it lists no unified vision for economic development or consistent use of tools or incentives. And there's just a short little paragraph under that. And it says, economic development incentives and activities by the city have lacked consistency due to the fact that they have historically not been a well-funded or staffed priorities for Laredo. Overall, the business community has voiced support for greater and more consistent use of incentives. The strategy that follows offers guidelines for specific incentives policies that Laredo can use, but more than anything else, it is important to have a clear and well-communicated policy on how businesses can apply for the incentives that the city offers. So that's pretty much the conversation, part of the conversation we just had. And then it goes into the target industry analysis, but I think that is another talking point at this point, and it's already 12:54.
So 3 years
No, I
later,
get-
and we're still talking about what we were missing 3 years ago.
Well, I can bring something back to y'all anyway for y'all to kind of go through, to see if it makes sense to y'all. For the next month, you're under no obligation, and Chairman, back me up on this. If I bring something back and y'all don't like it and you want to redo some more of it, I mean, there's no hurry on this, so y'all can.
Is there any
still
way
play
that
with
you
it some
can
more.
put it on an email? I mean, and I don't know how that would work. I mean, the quorum and all that stuff, but put recommendations on an email, or if y'all want to put recommendations, send them to Mr. Garcia. But on my end, I would put something on the comprehensive, for us to review the economic development comprehensive plan, and that should be one of our tasks. Yes, sir, Mr. Dickey.
Has the city ever looked at that comprehensive plan and kind of halfway tried to work on it, or they just put it like on the shelf, or Alma's got it on her desk, and maybe she's doing more about it than the damn city council or city manager. I don't care if
The
they're
thing is, we ought to look at, I think one of our tasks should be to look at the economic development part of the comprehensive plan and try, like Ms. Hernandez said, and try and make it dynamic as opposed to, just have it sit on a shelf.
Would that be a good transition for the discussion number 3, item number 3? Since that
Okay.
kind of ties into the cluster initiative.
Anything else
Okay,
on number one?
Wait, I was just saying, before you move to 3, Mr. Chairman, you need to close out number 2.
Right. So any other discussion on we already closed number 2, I guess, number 2 being number 1, right?
Oh, number 1, my bad, yes, number 1.
So any other discussion like that? We're almost at 1:00, but I think we got something good going. I really like the conversation, and what's hard with us is that we meet once a month, so we try and want to get stuff done during the month. So then when we have the meeting, we can pretty much have a solution. Anything else?
If someone wants to make a motion on what I need to do, and then if you want to do that, or somebody else, and then someone, gives it a second, whatever, I can do that.
So the motion is for the Economic Development Director to draft up a revised mission statement on the EDAC committee for review and possible action item for the next meeting.
What, I'm sorry? So the
Second Maida's
resolution is
motion.
for the Economic Development Director, Teclo Garcia, to draft a mission statement, incorporating some of the things. Well, we'll leave it like that. Do y'all want to put incorporating small business, the comprehensive plan, tax incentives, or
I
we
mean,
just leave it at that?
I just leave it at that, and I took the notes from what everyone said, and so I'll try to put that in there. And I think you even had a second on this motion already.
I
Okay, so there's a second by Mr. Dickey. Any discussion?
Can he email it as soon as he has it? That we don't have to wait till next month?
Yes,
Right,
please.
do that. And y'all put your
Hey, give me some time, man.
your recommendations.
Okay,
So
we're
any
trying to move
discussion on
fast so we
that?
can go to the next thing and get you the staff you need.
Any discussion? If not, do I hear a motion for the approval? All those in favor? All those in favor? The motion passes. Okay, next item is number 3, update with possible action on the cluster initiative and the 380 agreement subcommittees. We haven't met. I know Alma had some questions on the cluster initiative. Alma, do you feel comfortable being on that committee? One of the things we wanted to do on the cluster initiative is to have Ms. Viviana Frank sort of give you all an introduction on the cluster initiative, so that from there, and a guidance so y'all could take it from there.
Go ahead.
Any discussion on that? Go ahead.
Yes. I believe when the motion was presented, that wasn't discussed about having her on there, and it came up later in email exchanges. So I can understand, I guess, how the subcommittee went, and the reason why I had the questions even before she was suggested to be the facilitator for our subcommittee meeting. So there was a lot of questions, and when the subcommittee finally did meet the day before yesterday, there's 4 of us, and we each had a different interpretation or perspective of what the action behind the motion was. And so, because I had the amount of questions that I had, and I had the uncertainties, and I was able to speak to 2 of the 3, I guess, if I include myself, but out of the 4 of us, I was able to speak to the majority. And when I found that we had different interpretations, we all, the three of us agreed that it would be best to discuss them amongst ourselves before we brought anybody else on board. And then the confusion further ensued with the back and forth emails about bringing her on board, because I didn't feel that she was going to help me better understand the motion itself. That was what I was lacking the clarity of, not so much clusters, what they are, how to go about them, anything like that, because Viviana's presentation to the EDAC was not the first time that Viviana has presented clusters in my audience. So, and her and I have exchanged emails back and forth when we were on the emergency task force. So it wasn't my first taste of the clusters. And even then, again, the question for us was the actual motion. For me, it was the actual motion and what we are allowed to do or not do at that point, and the action
It's a
behind it.
I mean, it's a subcommittee, so y'all can, you know, it's pretty broad what y'all can do.
But and I don't want to get too hung up on the motion because we did come up with an answer for you guys. But the motion, the wording on the motion was to create a cluster initiative. And the definition of cluster initiative I found was to a group of public, private sector, and educators, a group of people to actively do a cluster analysis. And so at that point, it seems to be that we need to beef up DECLO staff. No, I'm kidding. But at that point, it's like, what are we allowed to do? Are there non-disclosure agreements being signed? Who are we allowed to invite and not invite? Are we talking about at a local level only? Are we talking about state and national resources? And then it becomes this bigger thing. And that's why we didn't want to invite outside people to our subcommittee meeting. The statement that the subcommittee agreed on is that the subcommittee met on Tuesday, September 1st at 2 p.m. and concluded that the Texas A&M International University, TAMIU's Texas Center for Border Economic and Enterprise Development is the most suitable entity for creating a cluster analysis. We recommend that the city's Economic Development Department continues its communication with the TCBEED. The subcommittee is in contact with the TCBEED to determine a timeline for the completion of the analysis, as well as identifying any gaps or hurdles that the TCBEED is experiencing. And that's the statement, the wording that we all four agreed on post our actual subcommittee meeting. And I could talk about it further. I could also point to our comprehensive plan and point the existing Webb County cluster analysis that's there if you'd like. I could also talk about several resources that are funded by the government that can also put together a cluster analysis. So I'm going ahead and mute my thing for questions.
Alma, can you just for the record, can you send me that statement, please?
I sure can, yes, and I'll copy Arnold.
And I believe the director is and has and continues to work with Vivian Frank and other individuals in the community for these cluster analysis. That is my understanding. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he's also working with DECLO on some other projects. And so the communication, the network is there. He has the experience and knowledge. It's just a matter of, and obviously that's what they do. They collect data to analyze and provide these reports to us. So I don't know, DECLO, I think, do you work with Schaffler? No, you're muted. DECLO, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry. Yes, I do work with him. We haven't worked on clusters, but we've worked on other issues, and I speak to him on a semi-regular basis. Yeah.
So he did offer.
Well, good. I mean,
Again, he did offer to provide the support.
anybody
He just
else
needs a
wanna
timeline
comment?
of when this is needed, and he can have it. And again, it's in a center for it is in the university, but again, it's for anyone that needs it. It's available. It also provides the opportunity for other individuals and or students or other professors to analyze and provide any supports and kind of enhance those particular reports or analyze it a little bit further if need be.
Any comments from some of the other members? Julia?
If I can just chime in, cluster analyses and cluster initiatives are actually, you kind of have to think of them as steps. A cluster analysis is pretty much the gathering of all the information on the businesses you have. The cluster initiative, and I think what we're discussing initially for the committee, the cluster initiative puts together all those representatives for all the different clusters. If you don't really have a cluster initiative, you're not going to get good data for the cluster analysis because you don't have the individuals. So I think the goal of the committee, and I think that's where, from my understanding, what Viviana was going to assist on is basically putting that framework together so that the committee can start reaching out to, or the committee can find another group to do the reaching out of all the business individuals that fit into the clusters that we want to analyze, which I think were industrial and medical. I don't have the motion in front of me right now, but
No, you're correct.
Sorry, I thought you were
You're
done.
correct, Julian.
Yeah.
So
Oh, sorry, finish, Julian. Go ahead.
no, that's just it. I just wanted to make sure we had a understanding between how they're two different things.
Yes, no, I did. And I believe the cluster initiative comes before the cluster analysis. And that was what your motion said, was to create a cluster initiative. And it was to, I don't have it word for word, but I got to watch the YouTube video a few times. I'll let Arturo speak up because he's on the subcommittee. Go ahead.
Arturo, can you go ahead, Arturo?
Can
unmute.
can
There
we
you go.
invite Mr. Schaffler? Can we invite Mr. Schaffler to speak to the committee on what they're exactly doing, so we know what exactly they're doing with the
Yes.
city?
To the
Yes.
subcommittee, or to our main meeting?
No, to our meeting, to our meeting or a special meeting or whatever you want.
Right. I mean, first of all, yeah, anyone can attend this meeting either as a guest or as a member of the public. This is an open meeting, and we'll accommodate them in whichever way that we can. And then second, on the subcommittee meeting, it's up to the subcommittee to decide, kind of, but that meeting is not regulated by any stringent rules from the city. It doesn't meet a quorum. You can meet casually, with a phone in a coffee shop, but as long as you don't surpass the 4 people, right, which would constitute a quorum after that. So they're pretty easy rules to deal with, and we can certainly have anybody that you like. If you want to invite Mr. Sheffer, we can extend an invitation to him and get him to come to our next meeting or whenever he's available.
We
I like
see
that
that
idea.
we don't want to do work that he's already doing. That's really what we want to do.
And maybe even Dr. George Clark. I know that he's also working, he was part of some of the subcommittees for developing the comprehensive plan, and has knowledge also, my understanding, on cluster initiatives and analysis.
And Dr. Scheffler and Dr. Clark were both on the Emergency Recovery Task Force.
Right.
And I think, again, it's not, at that point, we could bring who we want at the table. And then, both Mayra and I have contacts at the Federal Reserve that were directly and indirectly part of the cluster analysis that was used in Viviana's example on her presentation. But again, I'm going to point this out. We have a cluster analysis of Webb County right here in the comprehensive plan. It might be a little outdated, but I mean, until we're all in a post-pandemic world, it's all going to be outdated. So I'm going to go back to, again, my interpretation of the motion. And I watched, a lot of my questions got answered when it was posted on YouTube, and I was able to rewind and make sure I was understanding what was being said in the discussion. And the reason why I abstained is because I didn't have a clear understanding of what the action was behind it. And I'm still hearing what sounds like, I don't want to say a lot of work, but it's very unclear. Do we create a committee and then we're responsible of organizing this committee? That's the initiative. Bring all these people to the table. And now there's talks of Viviana facilitating that meeting. That was never part of the original motion. It came out afterwards. And then there's, okay, well, now we're talking about bringing people to the table. Now let's bring out the big guns. Let's talk to Harvard. Harvard does a number, why not? We are very vital, important for important port for North American trade. We don't have to limit ourselves. So it's going back to what is the action, the real action, because in the motion, it also says to incentivize manufacturing. So that goes back to our mission statement. It's a bigger deal than just, hey, you're gonna have the four of you guys come and talk about
Right.
this and let's bring somebody
Yeah.
else in. And that's
So-
why we didn't get too active on our actions behind it, because there's a lot to it.
So in the interest of time, because we're over our time limit and we do this we do this every week, but I think what we need to do, Mr. Chairman, is have someone make a motion to what is supposed to happen next, right? And then let the group vote on it, so we can have some direction on what would happen at next, or what we need to do for the next meeting. And like I said, we're already at 1:11, and we probably need to do that.
The only thing with a motion, I mean, we don't also want to make it too specific. I mean, it's sort of a catch-22, not make it too specific, but of course you want direction, right? So I don't know how the committee feels. I mean, I think y'all are headed in the right direction. What do y'all think?
I just want to kind of clarify something, because part of Alma's report is a report on the subcommittee, but then she does have a motion in there where she directs the Economic Development Department to continue engaging with TAMIU and the department there. So Alma, if you could just repeat that motion, and I think we'll get a second and we'll vote for that.
I guess at this point, the motion would be to ask the Economic Development Director to come into contact with the Director of the Texas Center for Border Economic and Enterprise Development
Mm-hmm.
to
Okay.
come to an understanding of what services they are already doing, I guess.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, and it's second by who? By Rafael?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, there's a motion, second by Rafael. Any discussion on that?
Can I just ask a question? So just to make sure I'm understanding everything correctly. So what's being said is that a cluster initiative is already being done, and we are going to talk to, I'm sorry, what was his name? That's the individual that's going to give us the update, or give DECLO the update?
Statement from the subcommittee is that we felt after our discussion that the most qualified or the best suited entity to create a cluster analysis is that department at TAMIU. And that we're asking the director of the economic development for the city to discuss the cluster analysis.
To
and any
continue their
services
discussion,
related to-
because I believe they were already in talks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our understanding is it's Dr. Federico Scheffler. And
Right,
if,
that's him.
yes, if DECLO and Dr. Scheffler can at some point have a meeting to discuss cluster analysis. And there's still further action from the subcommittee to discuss a timeline and any gaps, and where maybe that the TAMIU Center is unable to completely finish the analysis or whatever. There's still more discussion there's still more subcommittee action to be taken. But after our first meeting, our conclusion is so far that TAMIU's Dr. Scheffler and his department are the best suited group to do this.
So then that's the motion, right?
Well,
Yeah, so
the
there's a
motion
motion
is,
by Alma, there's a motion by Ms. Acevedo, there's a second by Rafael. Any other discussion? There was some discussion. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. All those against? All those against? One, motion carries. Very good. With that, I guess that concludes our meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn our meeting? Please raise your hand
Second.
or say aye. Alma, and seconded by Joe. Thank you all very much. Motion
Thank
carries.
you. Appreciate your help and your support.
Thank you all.